They say you can measure a marriage by what your partner is willing to lie about. In my case, it was my entire existence. It started on a Thursday. I was home early that day. I walked into the apartment. But then came her voice, sharp enough to pierce metal. "Don't come to the company party," she said, not even turning to look at me. At first, I thought she was joking. "Why?" I asked, removing my boots by the door like she always asked. "I thought I'd meet your coworkers, maybe see this boss you're always quoting." That's when she frowned, finally turning to face me. "I told them you're a lawyer," she said. Not apologetically, not regretfully, just flat, like it was a line she'd practiced. My breath caught in my throat. I chuckled. I actually laughed. "A lawyer?" She didn't even blink. I had to. They all work in finance, Ethan. Marketing, law, real estate. It's not a potluck at the union hall. These people, they judge. I stared at her, trying to recognize the girl I married and the woman before me. She used to admire that I worked with my hands. Said I was the most dependable man she'd ever met. Back when we lived in a one-bedroom above the deli and she'd kiss my greasy forehead like it was gold. "You told them I was a lawyer?" I repeated. Her face twisted. "I'll tell them you're in the hospital. Just don't come." I stood there in silence, my hands still dirty from work. She turned back to the mirror, checking her lipstick, adjusting her earrings. I didn't fight her. I didn't beg for my spot on her arm. I just left. The subway ride felt longer that night. Every stop, every screech of metal on metal echoed her words. "I told them you're a lawyer." And here's the kicker. I used to dream about being one. Back before bills, before life got messy. I was even enrolled at City College for a while. But when my old man got sick, somebody had to step up. My mom couldn't do it alone, and I wasn't going to watch him rot without a roof over his head. So, I dropped out, picked up a wrench, and never looked back. Until she made me. That night, I drank alone. Just a cold six-pack, a quiet couch, and thoughts louder than a freight train. And then the phone started ringing. First it was her sister, then a coworker, then someone named Madison. I didn't even know she had a Madison in her life. One call after another. I let the first few go to voicemail. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. But then the texts started coming in. "Ethan, where are you? Call me. Please. You need to come." Something happened. My gut twisted. I grabbed my jacket and ran. Didn't even think. Just bolted down the stairs, heart pounding in my ears, mind racing through every worst-case scenario, a car crash, a fight, an overdose, a mistake that went too far. I got to the venue, some high-rise downtown. I saw the blinking lights, the sea of suits and shimmering dresses. People spilling out, murmuring, some crying, others filming on their phones. I pushed through the crowd. Nobody stopped me. Guess the smell of sweat and diesel cleared a path. She was on the ground. My wife. Kneeling next to some guy in a bloodstained shirt, mascara running down her face. Her hands were shaking. Paramedics crouched over him, doing chest compressions. Someone whispered, "He just collapsed. They said he was drinking too much." The guy wasn't breathing. I didn't recognize him, a coworker maybe, or a fling, but I knew that look on her face. Guilt. And for the first time, I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt clarity. They say a man doesn't know his breaking point until it's quiet. I found mine standing in a corner of that glitzy ballroom, invisible in plain sight, watching paramedics drag away a man I'd never met, a man who, from the looks of it, had died with my wife's perfume still clinging to his shirt. They wheeled him out with cold efficiency, and in the silence that followed, I watched her. She stood there like a shattered statue, trembling in a dress that probably cost more than my last paycheck. People kept their distance, offering side eyes and muttered condolences, but no one touched her. And that's when it hit me. She was alone. Not because I wasn't beside her, but because even in a room full of her lies, not one soul genuinely knew who she was. Not like I did. Not like I used to. A woman approached me, well-dressed, mid-30s, fake lashes, real panic. "Are you Ethan?" she asked. Her husband. I nodded once. No shame. No lies. "I'm Madison. From her firm." I'm so sorry. None of us. I mean, we didn't know he was married. "Who?" I asked. My voice came out lower than I expected. Steady. Cold. She blinked. "What?" "The guy. The one they just took out of here." "What was his name?" Her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh God. You didn't know." I didn't answer. Just stared. It was Joel. Joel Marcus. He was one of the senior partners. They were seeing each other. Just like that. No apology. No cushioning. Just the facts, dropped on me like a piano from a rooftop. Joel Marcus, senior partner, dead on the dance floor. My wife's mentor, apparently. Guess he mentored more than spreadsheets. I didn't flinch. I just said, figures. Madison blinked like she wasn't sure what emotion I was supposed to have. Rage? Grief? Collapse? But I'd felt the fall hours ago. Now, I was just standing in the crater. Did you know? I asked. That they were. No. Well, she hesitated. There were rumors. He brought her to everything. Trips. Events. Dinners. And I wasn't invited to a single one. She looked away. That told me everything. I left before she could say anything else. Before my wife noticed I'd been there. Before the stench of champagne and hypocrisy soaked too deep into my skin. I took the back stairs. I didn't need anyone watching me leave, whispering to each other. Was that him? The husband? The garbage guy? That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on our balcony with a beer, watching the city lights pulse like dying stars. Somewhere, I knew she was giving her statement, explaining what a tragic accident it was, maybe even sobbing for effect. She always had a flair for the dramatic. The front door creaked open around 3 a.m. I didn't move. She stood behind me for a moment before speaking. You were there. I nodded. You didn't say anything. I didn't have to. Silence. Then, the most audacious line I've ever heard come out of a human mouth. It wasn't what it looked like. I turned my head slightly, just enough to catch her eyes. Did you love him? I asked. She opened her mouth, closed it, then said, it was complicated. No. It's simple, I replied. You asked me not to come, because you told them I was someone else, and because the man you were sleeping with was going to be there. Tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't want to embarrass you. I laughed. Not loud. Not bitter. Just tired. You weren't protecting me. You were protecting the lie. Your image. The one that doesn't include a man who comes home with dirt under his nails. She stepped forward. Ethan, please. I stood up. Don't. That night, I didn't ask her to leave. I didn't scream or throw anything. I just told her the truth. We'll talk tomorrow. But tonight, I want you to sleep in the guest room. She hesitated. Is this how it ends? No, I said. This is how it begins. She didn't fight it. Didn't protest or plead when I told her to take the guest room. Just picked up her clutch, nodded like we were co-workers negotiating office space, and drifted down the hallway in her $1,000 heels. Click, click, click. I heard the door shut behind her, and I sat back down, stared at the skyline like it owed me an explanation. She used to leave notes in my lunchbox. Crumpled little post-its with dumb doodles and can't wait to see you tonight. Love, scribbled in pink ink. That same woman had just walked into my house after sleeping with her boss and tried to spin it like a miscommunication. The irony? If she'd come to me back then, said she was unhappy, said she missed the version of me that wore a tie instead of steel-toe boots, I might have listened. Hell, I might have tried harder. But she didn't want better. She wanted different. And different came with tailored suits, imported watches, and a job title that sounded important at cocktail parties. I went to bed on the couch that night, didn't even take off my boots. Couldn't. I needed the discomfort. I needed to remember the pain while it was still fresh, carve it deep into the bone, so I'd never forget how it got there. At 5 a.m., my alarm buzzed. I was on the road 10 minutes later. Trash doesn't wait for heartbreak. My buddy Marco noticed something was off when I slammed the dumpster lid harder than necessary. You good, man? He asked, wiping sweat from his brow. Yeah, I said. Just threw out something that shouldn't have come home in the first place. That was my only slip. The rest of the day, I worked like a man possessed. Route after route. Didn't check my phone. Didn't take a break. By the time I got home, I smelled like diesel and regret. She was in the kitchen, still wearing that damn party dress, like she hadn't moved since she got back. Her hair was a mess. Makeup smeared. She looked like someone who'd been crying but didn't want to be caught doing it. We stood in silence for a while. I didn't sleep, she said finally. Neither did I. She reached for a mug. Coffee. Don't. Her hand froze midair. She put it back down. I need you to tell me the truth, I said. No games. No, it's complicated. Just truth. She nodded. How long? She swallowed hard. 6 months. That was longer than I expected. Long enough to share birthdays, holidays, long enough to lie to my face over dinner and still kiss me goodnight. Was it just him? She hesitated. That was answer enough. Do I even want to know? I asked. She shook her head slowly. No, you don't. Fair enough. What was I to you? I asked. A placeholder? A warm bed while you played dress-up with someone who didn't smell like trash juice. Her voice cracked. No. You were safe. You always showed up. You always loved me. I nearly laughed. And that's why you betrayed me? Because I always loved you? Her silence was the most honest thing she said. That evening, I handed her a sheet of paper, one I'd printed at the public library after work. What's this? She asked. House agreement, I said. Until we figure out what this is. You stay on your side. I stay on mine. Kitchen schedule. Laundry rotation. And no more pretending. You can stay here for now, but only until I'm ready to decide. Decide what? If I'm going to burn the whole thing down, or just walk away. She opened her mouth like she had something poetic to say. Maybe another half-hearted apology. Maybe a recycled lie she thought could pass. But she must have seen the look on my face. She didn't say a word. Just signed the paper. She signed it too quickly. Didn't read it, not really. Just scanned it like someone used to skimming contracts with invisible fine print, assuming she'd be able to finesse her way out later. But this wasn't a deal. It was a line in the sand. And for the first time, I saw something flicker in her eyes that hadn't been there since the day we said, I do. Panic. Not fear. Not guilt. Panic. Because up until that moment, she thought I was predictable. The dependable husband. The quiet one. The guy who says it's fine even when it's not. She expected anger. She expected yelling. She expected a shattered plate or maybe a slammed door so she could play victim later. He got so irrational, I didn't feel safe. But no, I gave her calm. And calm terrified her. Because calm meant I wasn't trying to fix it. I wasn't pleading for her to come back. I wasn't even thinking about how to salvage the pieces. I was studying them, deciding how best to sweep them into the trash. She spent the next few days walking on eggshells around a man who used to walk on them for her. She cooked dinner one night. Lasagna, my favorite. Set it on the table without a word, tried to smile like it could bridge the Grand Canyon she'd carved through the center of our lives. I took one look at it and said, you don't have to pretend. We're roommates now. You don't owe me dinner. She didn't eat either. Just sat there, watching the sauce cool into dried regret. That night, she came to me in the living room. I was on the couch, legs up, watching an old documentary about steelworkers. Blue-collar men. Real ones. I've been thinking, she said, arms crossed. Defensive posture. Always the first sign of a losing argument. Oh yeah. I didn't take my eyes off the screen. About us. I paused it. There is no us. There's what you destroyed. And there's what's left. She flinched. I didn't mean for this to happen. Didn't mean for what? I asked. Didn't mean to lie? Cheat? Look down your nose at the man who carried this house on his back while you played Cinderella in designer heels. Her mouth opened. Closed. No words. Let me tell you what you meant to do, I continued. You meant to have your cake and eat it, too. You wanted the guy who made you feel safe, but you wanted to feel special, too. You wanted the respect of being a wife with the freedom of being single. And now you're choking on it. She stepped back like I'd slapped her. And maybe I did. Just not with my hands. I want to fix this, she whispered. Too late. You haven't even given me a chance. Oh, I gave you years of chances. You just spent them with someone else's hands around your waist. Her tears were real this time. But not because she missed me. Because she saw it. I was done. Not angry. Not vindictive. Done. And done is the one thing she couldn't manipulate. I went back to my show. She just stood there for a moment, then turned and walked away. Back to the guest room. Back to the world she created, one where I no longer followed. That was the night I ordered the journal. Leather-bound, plain cover. No name. Because it wasn't for poetry. It was for facts. Dates. Names. Quotes. Patterns. Because if she was going to destroy our life in secret, I was going to build the truth in daylight. I've always believed in hard work. Give me a pile of junk and a deadline, and I'll turn it into order. It's what I do. So when my marriage burned down, I didn't reach for a lawyer. I reached for a pen. The journal arrived 2 days later, plain, black, unassuming. You'd never guess it would hold a map of betrayal. Page 1. I wrote her name. And underneath it, the first lie she ever told me that I could remember. It was just dinner. Joel Marcus. The man who died with her lipstick on his shirt. Found out he wasn't the first. Probably wouldn't have been the last. I started digging. Not out of jealousy, that ship had sunk. This was reconnaissance. I wanted the truth lined up in columns like bricks in a wall. Something solid. Something real. Phone records. social media timestamps, receipts she left in her coat pockets. I cross-referenced everything. And let me tell you something, people don't cheat randomly. They do it in patterns, time slots, habits. Turns out, she liked weekday lunches, upscale spots with dark booths. She always used her personal card, probably to keep it off the joint statement. But she was sloppy. Sloppy in the way that only people who think they'll never be caught get. I found a receipt for a hotel bar across town, dated 2 months before Joel dropped dead. She told me she was at a yoga retreat. I remember because I stayed up painting the bedroom while she was gone, thinking she'd come home surprised. She wasn't. She didn't even notice the change. That receipt went in the journal, taped in with precision, timestamp circled in red ink. It was one of dozens. Then I got smarter. Pulled our smart home locks, the door lock code, Wi-Fi usage, even thermostat settings. Guess what? The thermostat remembered the night she had company. Heat turned up at midnight. Bedroom lights on in patterns that didn't match mine. Guest devices on the network. A Greg's iPhone popped up more than once. She never mentioned a Greg. That name went in the journal. So did screenshots of texts she accidentally backed up to our shared cloud years ago. I had access, of course. Set it up myself. She never changed the password. Her messages were a study in duality. You're my everything. Ethan will never find out. It's just until I figure things out. I highlighted that one. Just until she figured things out. I already had. The journal started getting heavy. Not just in weight, in proof. I numbered every page. Indexed it. Built a timeline so tight it would make a detective weep. And through it all, I said nothing. She noticed the change, though. I'd come home from work, clean up, cook for myself, and say exactly what was necessary. Nothing more. She'd ask questions, soft at first, then sharper. Are you seeing someone? No. You're distant. I'm here. I miss us. I didn't even flinch. Us was a fairy tale. This was reality. A roommate agreement, an open investigation, and a woman who used to be my wife still playing dress-up in a life she didn't earn. One night, she peeked into the den and saw the journal open on my lap. What's that? She asked. I looked her dead in the eye. My exit plan. She didn't ask another word. That night, I added a new section. Witnesses. Friends who had seen things. Her sister, once too drunk to keep quiet at a party, had joked about Lisa's thing with that one partner. Didn't know I was within earshot. Lisa? That was my wife's middle name. Only family used it. She froze when she realized I heard. Changed the subject fast. Too late. That memory? That quote? Page 89. Dated. Sourced. Filed. Because this wasn't about heartbreak anymore. This was about taking back my name, my dignity, and eventually, my freedom. There's an art to pretending you don't know a damn thing. I mastered it in a week. Every morning, I poured her coffee like I always had 2 sugars, splash of almond milk. Set it on the counter without eye contact. She thanked me with a tired voice, unsure if the ritual still meant anything. It didn't. It was muscle memory. And I let her think it meant hope. I started smiling again. Not wide, not fake, just enough to be unnerving. Just enough to make her wonder if I'd forgiven her, or forgotten. That's how you gain ground in this kind of war, not by yelling, but by confusing the enemy with kindness. She noticed. Started dressing up more, even when she had nowhere to go. Suddenly the perfume was back. The heels. The lipstick. All the old tools of seduction she thought could smooth over a storm. She'd linger near me in the kitchen. Brush my arm when she passed. Laugh too loudly at things that weren't funny. One night, she asked if I wanted to watch something together. Sure, I said. Let's watch The Departed. I've got a soft spot for betrayal stories. She went pale. Didn't mention movie night again. Meanwhile, the journal got thicker. I'd started tracking her routine again. Only now from the other side, this time I was the one being quiet, suspicious, calculated. She still texted constantly, but now she tried to hide it. Kept her phone face down. Left rooms more often to take calls. It didn't matter. I'd already cloned her backup. Everything she typed went straight to a private server I'd set up at my brother's place. She didn't even know he was back in town. I'd told her he moved to Alaska. He didn't. He was just good at disappearing, same as me. Now he was helping me quietly track her movements, dig into financial statements, and build what he called a scorched earth file. Something ironclad. Because I wasn't just planning to leave. I was planning to win. I wanted leverage. And leverage, my friend, is everything. Turns out, Her company had a very strict policy about inter-office relationships, especially with senior partners, especially ones she reported to directly. And Joel Marcus? He wasn't just some creep hitting on her at the water cooler. He was married, too. Had kids. That information never made it into her late-night confessions. But I found his wife. It wasn't hard. Facebook. PDA group. Her email was listed under Volunteer Coordinator. I drafted a polite message. Attached 3 photos. 2 receipts. 1 email thread. No accusations. Just facts. Hi, Mrs. Marcus. I thought you should be aware. I would want to know. Hit send. Sat back. Waited. 2 days later, she filed a complaint with the firm. Joel's name started vanishing from internal directories. And my wife? She came home that night crying, mascara bleeding into her wine. I think I'm being pushed out, she said, voice shaking. They're auditing everything. Joel's family's involved. It's a nightmare. I played dumb. Wow, I said. That's awful. You must be so scared. She nodded, sniffling. I brought her a tissue. Sat next to her. Said, let me know if I can do anything to help. And I meant it. I wanted her to feel safe, right before the floor dropped out. The next morning, she asked if we could talk about counseling. Said maybe we should try again. Try healing. I agreed. Smiled. Even booked the appointment myself. Because the counselor I chose wasn't just a therapist. He was an old buddy from my union days, now a licensed marriage and family therapist who owed me a few favors. The first rule of war is simple, control the ground. So when she suggested therapy, I didn't flinch. I didn't argue. I leaned in, looked her in the eye, and said, that's a great idea. She smiled, that slow, tentative smile of someone who still thinks they're in control. What she didn't know was that I'd already picked the battleground. His name was Carter Flynn, and back in the day, he was a hard-nosed union rep who could out-negotiate a room full of sharks. No? He wore sweaters and ran a counseling practice with a specialty in narcissistic injury recovery. He'd helped plenty of men who'd been gutted by women like her. And he owed me. Big. I booked the session under my name. Told her it was a place I'd heard good things about. I made sure Carter knew the assignment. Get her talking, get her comfortable, and when the time comes, flip the lights on. We walked in together, dressed like a couple trying to make it work. She wore soft pastels, the forgiving wife palette. I wore jeans and the shirt she once said made me look too working class for brunch. Let her remember. Let her squirm. Carter greeted us warmly. Professional. Neutral. Told us to sit wherever we felt most comfortable. She sat first, middle cushion of the couch. I sat to her right, close enough to play the part, far enough to keep my distance. So, Carter began, notebook in hand. Why are we here? She launched in like it was rehearsed. We've had a rough patch. Things have been tense, but I think we're both ready to rebuild. I've made mistakes. So has he. He raised a brow. Tell me about those mistakes. She shifted. Well, I think we both stopped appreciating each other. I got caught up in work. He got cold. Distant. I didn't say a word. Carter turned to me. And you? How do you see it? I think I'm just here to make sure the record's straight. That made her blink. Carter nodded slowly. Would you say there's been a breach of trust? She jumped in before I could answer. We've both said things we regret. And I know I crossed lines I shouldn't have, but it's complicated. When someone makes you feel unseen, you... No, I said, finally turning to her. You don't get to paint this like it was mutual. You didn't cheat because you were lonely. You cheated because you could. She froze. Carter didn't blink. Do you believe she's been dishonest? I know she has. I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila folder. Thick. Heavier than it looked. Set it on the table. What's that? She asked, already going pale. Your resume, I said. The uncut version. I opened it slowly. 1 page at a time. Emails. Messages. Receipts. Photos. Timestamps. All organized. All color-coded. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't even look angry. Carter flipped through a few. Let out a low whistle. That's thorough. She was shaking now. You went through my stuff? She whispered. No. I observed. I documented. And you were careless. Sloppy. Entitled. I didn't think you'd ever. Exactly. I cut in. You never thought I'd do anything. You thought I'd stay here, play house, hold your hand while you paraded around pretending your husband didn't exist. You wore my ring in front of your lovers. Tears filled her eyes. She turned to Carter. This is ambush. He set me up. Carter leaned back. Calm. Actually, I'd call it accountability. You asked for counseling. That's what this is. She looked between us, realizing she wasn't going to get rescued. Not this time. Then came the line I'd waited weeks to say. This was never about fixing us, I said, voice steady. This was about making sure when I walk out that door, I don't owe you a damn thing. You don't mean that, she whispered, mascara running now. I stood up, picked up the folder, and handed it to Carter. That's for legal record. I'll be filing for divorce by the end of the week. This session was your one free preview of the evidence. I turned to her, one last time. You should call your firm. If there's anything left of your job, I doubt it'll last past Monday.